This is an episode that I think we've been all waiting for. I'm John Barry, and this is my review of DuckTales, Season 3, Episode 12, Let's Get Dangerous. So, in case you haven't figured out, this is the second episode of the reboot DuckTales series that we are focusing on Darkwing Duck, who, in a previous episode in the second season, has been reintroduced to us, a new twist, if you will, on the character's backstory, and important to remember is that in the DuckTales universe, Darkwing Duck is an actual TV show that thus inspired a hero and inspired Drake Mallow to actually become Darkwing Duck. It is actually kind of a neat story how they all got that worked out in this sense. It's just a neat way to reinterpret this character and this franchise into this world. Have a fictional property which is identical to the fictional property we got in the real world, which sounds weird, I know, be the inspiration for the character, for the hero that we will see in DuckTales, and I expect we'll see him pop up a few more times as well. Actually, Darkwing Duck did pop up in more than one episode, or more than just the two episodes that feature him. But this is really his second major appearance where we focus the story on Darkwing Duck. It reinterprets how Darkwing Duck met Goslin, reinterprets it, but still kept some of the same beats. It's just the way they did it is, I would say, amazing. And how I mentioned earlier that it's important to remember that Darkwing Duck was an actual TV show in the DuckTales universe. That's because the villain of the episode, Boba, who was the first villain in Darkwing Duck as well, just thought I'd mention that, and responsible for the disappearance of Goslin's grandfather in both tellings, is created a device called Ramrod, which I believe was actually the name of the device in the original series opening for Darkwing Duck. It's been a while since I watched it. Might need to rewatch it, but I think it came from there. And it's basically takes things from other universes that are basically TV show universes and brings them into the quote-unquote real world. And so they bring in 4 of Darkwing Duck's villains. Crackerjack, the Liquidator, I think is his name. The shark, the one who did the shocking Megavolt, and Bushroot. And so yeah, and they also do so in the reference to some of the more one-off villains from Darkwing Duck as well, which is, I think, clever how they did it. I'm not going to spoil how they did it, but it was great, and I actually recognized the characters or at least one of them. But yeah, so they reinterpret a lot of stuff, and Boba is actually employed half by Fowl, half by Scrooge McDuck. Because remember, the leadership of Fowl is also Scrooge's board of directors, but Scrooge doesn't know that, though they do find out that Fowl exists because of everything that goes on in this episode. And yeah, and that's the general surmise of the episode. Kind of the status quo of the Darkwing Duck show is kind of set up at the end of this episode, more or less. And then we get this thing from Launchpad. I'll commute back and forth and sleep on the drive between. They and yeah, Launchpad will do that. I legitimately think that. But speaking of the conflict in the episode, you know what I'm trying to say, and even though I can't get it out, but Scrooge McDuck, and here we do discover what Boba is up to, and so he throws them into the Ramrod to get sent to another universe, which the universe he sent to is very similar, not to Quack Pack, because they've already done that, but the original 1980s DuckTales, more in the sense of, their designs, because there's a montage that shows what happened when they get into this alternate universe, and it does play they do, I think the one I'm looking for is, I think it does reference one episode from the the 80s show. But I just don't remember what episode. Probably other people do. But yeah, and it's kind of like so that design out there. No, all of them are in the 80s design. Kind of like how in one dream sequence from season 1 where we get Webby's old design. Actually, I think we get that twice. But I just know in the kind of a dream sequence or altered state of one from another, we get to see allusions to previous interpretations of the characters. Now, getting back to Darkwing Duck, the idea of Darkwing Duck becoming a real hero in the DuckTales universe based off of a show in the DuckTales universe is not solely original. If you ever watch Batman the Animated Series, seriously give it a watch. It's one of the best DC shows out there. DC does doing good with shows and especially animation, and Batman the Animated Series is spectacular. I might need to do a video on it someday. But there's an episode there where basically there's a retired actor who played the superhero. The character is voiced by Adam West, by the way. And he has this show where he played the superhero that inspired Bruce Wayne, inspired Batman, which I think is just neat. I don't know if the writers for DuckTales had seen that episode of Batman the Animated Series, but I gotta say, it's just a neat concept, the fiction inspiring the real, even if it is still all within a fictional setting. It's just also just a unique design and gives a new take on why somebody may choose to be a hero. Especially for somebody like Batman, where it's simply his parents being killed in front of him caused him to become a hero. Probably not. But if he got inspired by a fictional hero, then maybe. And kind of same thing with Darkwing Duck in this universe. When he was growing up, he enjoyed the show Darkwing Duck, and he was bullied, but Darkwing Duck inspired him, and then thus with some encouragement for Launchpad, he decides to become Darkwing Duck, which I think is just a great way of just creating the hero. Creates the hero in a new and unique way. More than just, I have powers now, so I'm going to become a hero. Yeah, that could happen, but let's be real, most people I think would need to be inspired to become a hero. Now, where is Darkwing Duck going to go from this? I don't know, but I expect to see maybe not another episode focusing on Darkwing Duck this season, maybe next season, probably next season. But I expect every now and then we get references to what's going on. Maybe they're even considering doing a Darkwing Duck show. I would love that. I honestly really would. And in a way, they've had 2 soft pilots already, so it's very feasible that they could do it. I haven't heard anything official, just people like me speculating on the internet. Maybe they're doing some, trying to set it up and get the show off the ground. If they do, I would love it. If they just keep it within DuckTales and we have 1 or 2 episodes a season that feature Darkwing Duck, that also would be fine. Either way, I think I would be happy. But I think we're definitely going to see more of Darkwing Duck and hear more about him. And we also get Gizmo Duck in this episode too, where we learn that Darkwing doesn't know that Gizmo Duck is Fenton, but Fenton has helped Darkwing Duck set up his equipment, which I think is just kind of fun. Like, the hero in his public identity, for lack of a better term, his main identity, is helping the other hero, but the other hero doesn't realize the other hero is helping him. And actually, there was an episode of Darkwing Duck where Gizmo Duck appeared. I think it might have been the episode Justice Ducks. I think. It might have been a different one, but he made 2 appearances. But there's one where Gizmo Duck's trying to enter into the city because the villains have cut the city off. That's exactly what happens in here. And then when Gizmo Duck gets through, everyone praises Gizmo Duck saves the day. Meanwhile, Darkwing Duck, Goslin, and Launchpad have already saved the day. In this episode, with a tiny bit of help from Scrooge McDuck and Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And also, this episode also connects back with the founder of the Junior Woodchucks guidebook. There's some connections with that, and I do appreciate how they're working that in. We also learned more about Fowl in this episode. Not only did the characters now learn about Fowl, and that one of Scrooge's directors is a leader, but we also learned that they don't necessarily want to be the villains, but they're willing to be. If that's a good way. They basically almost can think of Fowl as DuckTales' interpretation of Hydra in Captain America the Winter Soldier. Not necessarily, definitely the opposition and the bad guys, but most of them are more interested in the security rather than any specific ideology. That's a good way of working because, or even you can say S.H.I.E.L.D. before S.H.I.E.L.D. realized they were infiltrated by Hydra. At the front, you can say, security, we need security kind of idea that we got to protect from all these dangers by any means necessary. When you have that kind of mindset, you could become the villain. That's a whole philosophical discussion, more right wrongs, that this video is not, I think, sufficient to cover. But it's interesting that Fowl, I think, is very much the DuckTales universe equivalent of Hydra. Just maybe not as, founded by literal Nazis. I'm just saying, sounds like they're more founded by business interests. Yeah, that sounds... Yeah, and business interests being the shadowy forces behind an evil organization bent on controlling the world is, I think, most suited to today's audiences, especially in America, where there's a lot of frustration at big businesses. So I think that is actually a good way of doing it, and also it is a kid's show. It's easier, I think, to have businesses that care only about their profits rather than literal bad guys. You can interpret it any way you want, really. But those are some parallels I've generally seen. And now that actually Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Scrooge McDuck know that Fowl exists and that one of Scrooge's board of directors is a leader, I think that will definitely make it interesting going forward. Like, will Scrooge suspect his other directors? Will he, seek to replace him? Like, what is going on? And that we now also have to deal with little supervillains. Boba is definitely, I don't know if he was arrested or not. He probably was, but we definitely know from the original Darkwing Duck that he was a crime boss and even walked out of prison. So it's very reasonable to say that he is going to become a villain in this universe, an actual villain. Think of somebody, you can compare it to any of the Marvel villains that are not part of Hydra. Not necessarily Ultron, of course, but the idea of that super villain out there that the superheroes have to deal with. Well, the Darkwing Duck villains have been sent back into their universe where they think they're basically in a show. Whether or not they know they're in a show or not is a different question. But speaking of that just reminded me, there was an episode of Darkwing Duck where they basically played with the idea that Darkwing Duck was a TV show and all that. I forget the episode name, but they basically played out the idea that Darkwing Duck is, just this show, and then there's this human executive who's like using a device to sneak a peek at all the stories and write them down. And it's this I think they took some inspiration for that. Because if I remember, in the original Darkwing Duck, they didn't know what the ramrod would have been used for, I think. I'm not quite sure. It's been a while since I watched it. I should have really rewatched that episode before I did this review. But there was definitely numerous callbacks to Darkwing Duck in more ways than one, talking about specific episodes, and how Launchpad and Darkwing used their knowledge of the original Darkwing Duck show to defeat the villains, which I think is just amazing. And I just can't wait to see more of what we will get from it. But I think that's going to conclude my review. To summarize, excellent episode. We get some nice callbacks to both Darkwing Duck and the 80s DuckTales show. We get some other, callbacks to different things, you can say. allusions even to other animated superhero shows, allusions to the MCU. I might have, though, that might have just been me. I doubt that might have even been intended. But it's just neat way how, there's these ideas and you can see similarities between them, which is just great. And also all ideas are in a way a synthesis of other ideas. And this episode really did that. It synthesized from multiple sources, have some of its own originality, and was able to create an engaging and unique and fun story, despite it being a synthesis of other ideas. But they did it in such a way that made it perfect. I don't know if this will be the best episode of the DuckTales, but I certainly say is one of the best. And that is where I'm going to end my review. So thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed my review, and if you did, please be sure to leave a like if you haven't already. And feel free to comment down below, what did you think of this episode? I would love to hear from you. And also feel free to check out any links in my description. We have my Twitter and my Facebook. There's my Discord server, my Patreon page as a way you can support my channel if you so wish. There is also my blog, the 555th Review. Check those all out. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. And ring that bell to stay up to date on all that I do. And feel free to check out either the video or the playlist on screen now. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. Let's get dangerous.